In 1934, a scientist died from a disease her own body created. Not cancer from smoking. Not an accident. Her blood simply stopped working, because for nearly 40 years, she'd been handling the most radioactive material on Earth with her bare hands. Here's what's wild, she knew it was dangerous. Kind of. Nobody fully understood radiation yet, she was the one figuring it out in real time. And she kept working anyway, because what she'd discovered was already saving lives faster than it was taking hers. This is Marie Curie. The first person, man or woman, to win 2 Nobel Prizes in 2 different sciences. The woman who discovered 2 entirely new elements and named them herself. The woman whose research is the reason cancer treatment exists in its modern form. And the woman whose laboratory notebooks are still radioactive enough, 100 years later, that they're locked in lead boxes. You want to read them, you sign a waiver and put on protective gear first. So how does a person go from brilliant scientist to so radioactive her handwriting is a biohazard? That's actually the story. Start in 1867, Warsaw. At the time, Poland wasn't even a country, Russia controlled it. Into that occupied city, a girl named Maria Sklodowska was born to 2 teachers. Her father taught physics and math. Her mother ran a school. The house was full of books and scientific instruments, and from a very young age, Maria was clearly wired differently than the other kids around her. But the Russian government had banned education in Polish. Her father lost his job for supporting Polish independence. Money got tight fast. And then things got worse. Maria was 8 when her older sister died of typhus. 2 years later, her mother died of tuberculosis. An 8-year-old and then a 10-year-old, watching her family disappear one funeral at a time. She said later that this was the moment she stopped believing in God. If there really was one, her mother would still be alive. She didn't fall apart. She got sharper. Top of her class every year, with a memory that unsettled her teachers. But there was a hard ceiling waiting for her. The University of Warsaw didn't admit women. Period. So Maria and her sister Bronia came up with a plan. Warsaw had an underground school, literally called the Flying University, that moved locations to dodge the Russian police. Get caught, and you could end up in Siberia. Maria studied there for a while, but she knew real training meant Paris. The problem was money, there wasn't enough for both sisters to go. So Maria made the call. Bronia goes first, becomes a doctor, Maria works as a governess and sends her the money. When Bronia starts earning, she sends for Maria. For the next 5 years, Maria taught a wealthy family's kids, waking up early to study math and physics on her own time. She fell for the family's son. When marriage came up, his parents shut it down instantly. A governess wasn't marriage material. She was heartbroken. She kept going anyway. In 1891, at 24, Maria finally made it to Paris. She started going by Marie. Enrolled at the Sorbonne. Life still wasn't easy, she was often too broke to eat, wore every layer of clothing she owned just to sleep through the cold, and more than once passed out in class from hunger. In 1893, she graduated first in her physics class. Full stop, out of everyone. It was in a small lab there that she met a French physicist named Marie Curie, already deep into his own research on magnetism. He recognized almost immediately that this wasn't an ordinary student. What grew between them was, essentially, a relationship built on shared obsession. They married in 1895, no rings, no gown. Marie wore a plain dark blue dress, sturdy enough to work in. Here's where the real story starts. In 1896, physicist Henri Becquerel discovered that uranium gave off a strange energy, on its own, with no outside light source. Nobody understood what it was. Marie picked it as her PhD topic. She had no real lab and no money, so she found an old, falling apart shed behind a school in Paris, leaking roof, so cold in winter the water in her test tubes froze solid. That shed became her laboratory. She discovered thorium did the same strange thing uranium did, and she gave the phenomenon a name, radioactivity. Then came the real shock, an ore called pitchblende was giving off far more radioactivity than the uranium inside it could explain. Which meant something else was hiding in there. Something nobody had ever found. Pierre was so struck by this, he dropped his own research to work with her. What followed was one of the most grueling investigations in scientific history. They ordered tons of pitchblende, leftover mining waste from Austria that everyone else considered garbage. Marie, personally, boiled it down in massive iron vats, stirring for hours with a heavy rod. The fumes were toxic enough to make breathing difficult. Her hands blistered and scarred. She didn't stop. For years. For years of filtering, boiling, and dissolving tons of raw ore, with no gloves, no mask, no protective gear of any kind, to extract a single gram of a new element. She named it radium, from the Latin word for ray. She'd already found a second new element before that, which she named after her home country, polonium. And here's the detail that gets people. At night, walking back through that dark shed, she and Pierre would see their test tubes glowing faintly blue. They thought it was beautiful. Marie wrote that sometimes they'd just stay there, watching the glow. Neither of them understood that the light they found so magical was, quietly, cell by cell, destroying them. In 1903, Marie, Pierre, and Becquerel won the Nobel Prize in Physics. Marie became the first woman ever to receive one. The catch? The Nobel Committee originally planned to credit only the two men. Pierre refused to accept the prize unless Marie's name was added. His exact words, "This work belongs to her as much as it belongs to me." Only then did the committee correct it. Fame didn't fix the resentment. A lot of scientists at the French Academy couldn't accept that a woman had made a discovery this significant. Newspapers ran stories crediting Pierre as the real scientist, with Marie cast as his assistant. She never publicly fought it. She just kept working. Then came the worst morning of her life. April 19, 1906. A rainy street in Paris. Pierre was walking back from a meeting, distracted, probably thinking about some new experiment. He slipped crossing the street and fell directly under a horse-drawn cart. The wheels crushed his skull. He died instantly. Marie wrote in her diary that night, "How am I going to live without you?" She wore black mourning clothes for the rest of her life. But she didn't stop working. The University of Paris gave her Pierre's professorship. She became the first woman to teach at the Sorbonne. Hundreds showed up to her first lecture, some to learn, some just to see a woman standing at that podium. She didn't give a speech about it. She just picked up the lecture exactly where Pierre had left off. In 1911, she won a second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, for isolating radium and polonium. She's still the only person in history to win Nobel Prizes in two separate sciences. That same year, the French Academy of Sciences rejected her for membership, specifically because she was a woman. And that same year, a media firestorm over her personal life got so intense she was advised to skip her own Nobel ceremony. Foreign, female, widowed, and successful, French society genuinely could not deal with her. Then, 1914. World War I breaks out. Soldiers are dying on battlefields with no way for doctors to locate bullets or shrapnel inside their bodies. Marie had an idea: put X-ray machines on vehicles and drive them straight to the front lines. She taught herself to drive. Taught herself to fix engines. She built over 20 mobile X-ray units. Soldiers nicknamed them Little Curies. She personally drove to the front with her 17-year-old daughter Irene, taking X-rays under gunfire. Historians estimate this saved over 1 million soldiers. The whole time, radiation was quietly destroying her body. Nobody understood the danger yet. She carried a vial of radium in her pocket because she liked the glow. Her fingertips blackened and scarred. Her eyesight failed, cataracts left her nearly blind in her final years, and she told almost no one, afraid it would get her pulled from her own work. She kept going. She founded the Radium Institute in Paris, where major cancer research would happen for decades. She toured America, where thousands of women crowdfunded a gram of radium for her, worth a fortune at the time. She helped guide her daughter Irene into science, who would go on to win her own Nobel Prize. A mother-daughter Nobel pair, still the only one in history. But by then, decades of radiation exposure had wrecked her bone marrow. She developed recurring fevers, extreme fatigue, and doctors couldn't diagnose what was wrong. In 1934, in a small sanatorium in France, Marie Curie died at 66. The cause, aplastic anemia. Her bone marrow had simply stopped making new blood cells. The same rays that saved a million soldiers had, slowly, taken her. 100 years later, her lab notebooks are still radioactive. They're kept at the National Library of France, sealed in lead-lined boxes. Anyone who wants to read them signs a waiver and puts on protective gear first. Her personal diary, the one where she wrote about losing Pierre, is just as dangerous today as it was in 1906. So what does this actually tell us? This isn't really a story about science. It's a story about a woman who lost her sister, her mother, and her husband, and rebuilt herself from scratch every single time. Who fought her way into a world that told her, at every stage, that she didn't belong there. And who ultimately paid for her own discovery with her life, and knew, on some level, that the trade was probably coming. She once said, "Nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood." She wasn't talking about radiation specifically. She meant everything. Most of us panic over problems that, in 50 years, nobody will remember. It's worth remembering the woman who stood in a freezing, falling apart shed, hungry, barehanded, filtering poison out of rock, and came out the other side having changed medicine forever. If you learned something from this one, subscribe, we're doing more stories like this. And let me know in the comments who you want covered next.